This week on the Inside Athletic Training Podcast, we welcome in Chris Matarazzo, the head athletic trainer for the Vanderbilt University baseball program. Enjoy the show. All right, Chris, we're super excited to have you on the Inside Athletic Training Podcast for episode 85. Look forward to talking all things athletic training and your career. Obviously, a huge role at Vanderbilt University, and we'll get into that quickly here. Let's start from the beginning. Let you share some info with our listeners. Take it back to where you started. Where are you from? Were you into sports growing up? And also let us know how you found kind of a passion for athletic training.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks, Sam, for having me on. I know most of your guests are minor league and professional athletic trainers, so I'm honored you've considered me at the college level. I grew up in New Jersey, North Jersey, just outside of New York City. But always into sports, football, baseball. Grew up watching hockey, never played hockey, but that was a big part of my life. And then I played football through high school, and that's kind of where I got my passion for athletic training. I think towards the end of my high school career, it started to become evident that was probably going to be the end of it. And at times I had sustained injuries. I had spent some time in the athletic training room, and the rehab process was just something that interested me quite a bit in terms of coming back from injured to healthy. It was pretty close to strength and conditioning in a sense. So I always enjoyed being in the weight room too. So I kind of found some parallels there. And I think like a lot of us, it was another way to stay around sports when our playing career had ended too. So athletic training was a logical next step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's quite the common answer, suffering some injuries in your career in high school and then figuring out, we all love sports. How are we going to stay in it? That's a very common thread between you and many of the athletic trainers we've had on the show. Well, Chris, before we get into the college baseball side of athletic training, learning more about the resources and what you guys are doing at Vanderbilt, which is obviously awesome, want to talk a bit about your education before you broke into the profession. So you spent time at Springfield College getting your undergrad, also Penn State for your master's degree. Any key takeaways from just kind of the school process as an athletic trainer, looking back and reflecting from time earning your degrees in athletic training and kinesiology?
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate in terms of going to Springfield College. I think it was unique at the time in that a lot of the schools I was looking at, you would go to the school, you were in some type of like entry 2-year program, and then you had to apply to get into the athletic training specific portion of the program, whether it was a sophomore, junior year usually. Where at Springfield, they took us right in as freshmen. So we started our observation hours our freshman year. And I thought that gave us a lot more experience in terms of just getting hands-on with the student athletes. And I think that that's probably the biggest learning point is just however many student athletes you can touch, you can get practice on, helps develop your skill set, helps develop some confidence too. So just while you're in school, be forward, try to get whatever experience you can, because it's all helpful in terms of building into a solid professional.
Mm-hmm. And to piggyback off that a little bit, when you show up on campus or even when you were a grad assistant at Penn State, how do you kind of balance building confidence to put your hands on athletes and know what you're doing when probably in your background it's like, well, you know the anatomy, but you haven't had much experience and you're probably being reviewed by higher ups and peers? How do you kind of just dive in head first and maintain that confidence early on?
Yeah, I think for a lot of the students we see, especially even the ones that come in without confidence, they know a lot more than I think they give themselves credit for. So
Okay.
just trying to get just jump right into it, and you're gonna make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I still make mistakes. In
Mhm.
20 years, I'll still be making mistakes. So just knowing that it's okay to make a mistake, have open conversations with the people around you, your supervisors, your preceptors, whoever it may be, and I'm hoping you've landed in a spot where they take your education seriously and they take your mentorship seriously. And just if you have that clear communication, they'll let you make some mistakes. They'll jump in when you do, and then don't take whatever feedback you get to heart. It's there to help you, and then you grow for the next time. And it'll get easier. It'll get easier the more you get hands on, the more mistakes you make.
Hmm. And when you were working as a grad assistant at Penn State, or even undergrad for that matter, obviously you're in baseball now in a huge role at Vanderbilt. Did you have in mind that baseball was the path for you, or I know you we'll get into some other sports that you worked in your internships and coming up, but did you know baseball was what you want to do?
I didn't. I got into grad school. Football was pretty much the central portion of my life growing up. And
Hmm.
even when I got to grad school, I'm like, I want to work football. I bounced around. I did work a little bit of football, but I did get some exposure with some other sports. And then even actually during my time moving down to Florida, there was a large portion of the time there. Felt like I wanted to get into football still. And it was more there where my time kind of swayed. And I'm like, oh, I kind of enjoying this. And I
Hmm.
could see myself doing this in the long term.
Hmm. And on that point, we mentioned earlier that getting your hands on athletes and um, obviously the anatomy is important. Working multiple sports, talk a bit about how that expands your knowledge for the body, for the anatomy, for injuries you might not see in this sport versus that sport. How important is that for a young and upcoming athletic trainer, intern, someone starting out as a professional, maybe in minor league baseball this year, to get that experience working with different sports?
Sure. It's incredibly important in terms of going through school. I feel like a lot of the schooling and a lot of sports are generally lower body sports. I mean,
Hmm.
even baseball, there's plenty of lower body issues that we have to deal with. And trying to get an upper extremity component to it, you're going to see it with some football, but it's all acute, usually collision based injuries.
Hmm.
Getting a experience with baseball, with a tennis, with a volleyball, swim to get some of that exposure is incredibly helpful because you also see that there's a way to treat different student athletes in terms of the rehab process. So I'm very close with one of our football athletic trainers, and we have this conversation all the time where the way he rehabs a football athlete versus the way we rehab a baseball athlete, a lot of times, whether it's a pitcher versus like an offensive lineman, or they're almost two completely different jobs.
Yeah.
So getting the like with football, I feel like at times we're taping people up, we're getting them out there, getting them ready to take another hit, and they can play at 80, 90%.
Hmm.
But some other sports like maybe not volleyball, but track and field, like you can't tape a student athlete up and then expect them to sprint 100 meters. It's not
Yeah.
going to go the way that they want it to. So not just the anatomy and the injuries that you see, but the expectations of the rehab put them in two very different trajectories, I feel.
Hmm. And you've obviously had the opportunity to pick the brains of some super talented athletic trainers in your career. And, you just mentioned kind of the feel for athletes and not just the anatomy and figuring out, the puzzle that is athletic training. Is that a certain skill set or personality trait that you see in most of the talented athletic trainers you work with? Or is there another kind of area of skills or personality that you see in some of the most successful people you work with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, problem solving and is incredibly important to what we do. But I
Sure.
think one of the biggest personality traits, and I talked a little bit about this before, but is just the ability to self-evaluate in a constructive, like non-destructive manner. And then I'm going to go back to making mistakes because
Hmm.
again, we do make them, but to be able to go home at the end of the day and be like, hey, I didn't like what I just, or maybe not I didn't like what I just did, but this could have gone a little bit better. Figure
Hmm.
out how can I make this better for the next time, and then confidently go back in and do it the next time. We talk about a quick recovery, because there's going to be days where you're beating yourself up. This didn't go well. But just learn from it. And then, because the next day people are going to be counting on you to do your job well.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of reflected there on some of your experiences and making mistakes and whatnot as a younger athletic trainer. Reflecting on your time in college and now knowing what you know now and being, very successful in the industry and as a professional, um, any advice for the person starting an internship or a student maybe starting their undergrad right now? Best piece of advice for people looking to get into a position like you in the future?
Mm-hmm. I would say just be a sponge, learn from the people around you, and they don't have to be just athletic trainers. We get the opportunity to be around some incredibly talented professionals, whether they're your strength
Mm-hmm.
and conditioning coaches, your position coaches, physical therapists, dietitians. I mean, we have so many resources, and just be able to collaborate with them, and sometimes recognizing that you don't have the best skill set in that particular instant or situation, but knowing that somebody's right next door with the answers, lean on them again. Like, you don't have to be that person that knows everything. And more often than not, people don't like that person. They don't want you to know everything. They want you to know what you're supposed to know, and defer to the people that know what they know. So the collaboration effort is one of the most important things. And it's something I struggled with early on, but as I've gone on, it makes the job easier. Your athletes get better care, and you learn more from it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice for the younger athletic trainers out there, and something we've heard from a number of PBATS members and other professionals is you can't go in acting like you know everything. There's no way you could, and that's not what people are going to want to see from you. So great
Mm-hmm.
advice there for people jumping into the game and athletic training this coming year. Well, Chris, I want to shift gears a bit and kind of showcase some information about your career and how you landed at Vanderbilt where you are today.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about your time at Penn State as a grad assistant athletic trainer. After undergrad, was that always the plan to look for kind of a Power Five conference school to get into athletic training? And did it kind of meet expectations when you were there?
Yeah. So actually, growing up, it's interesting because I wanted to go to Penn State
Okay,
growing
cool.
up. And I remember sitting down with my guidance counselor, and at one point, and this is in high school, and they told me that they didn't offer an athletic training program. And I took that at face value and looked elsewhere and found out that they did. And that was really frustrating. So it was very cool to
Sure.
see that the GA position rolled around. And when I applied for that and interviewed, I was super excited to get it. And then I hit the ground running there, and it was a phenomenal experience. I learned more in my first year as a GA than I think any other given point in my career. It was just like they assigned me to a bunch of different sports. I had some struggles. I did some things well,
Hmm.
and it's kind of, I've been lucky. I've been around some very good programs, some very good schools. So I'm super appreciative of that. It's worked out
Hmm.
like I wanted it
Yeah,
to.
for sure. Cool to end up kind of where you thought you might be. Awesome story
Mhm.
there. Talk a bit about splitting your time, at Penn State. I believe you worked football, baseball, and both men's and women's volleyball. I
Mhm.
think a lot of younger athletic trainers or students might think, hey, I'm going to be a grad assistant. I'm going to work baseball. I'm going to work big time football, and that's all I want to do. What's it like working and covering so many different sports, meeting so many different student athletes? Did you enjoy it? Did it open your mind to other opportunities in the profession? What did you kind of take from that experience?
Yeah. So I bumped around each semester. Thankfully, I wasn't doing those all at one time. That would have been a lot.
Sure.
Um, it gave me some exposure to some sports I hadn't thought I would ever work or enjoy. And thinking back throughout my career, there were several times I was assigned to a sport, and I'm like, damn, I don't. This is not what I want to do. I want to be in
Yeah.
football, or I want to be in baseball. And you go into it, and you find out that you've loved it. I loved my time with volleyball. When they moved me to volleyball, I was furious. I'm like, I don't want to stay with football. And in my time there, then once I got to volleyball, it was awesome. It was one of my favorite years. You meet some cool people. They're passionate about what they do, and then in turn, I think that makes everything a lot more fun when you're just around people that are passionate too. Um, there were some things I didn't like. I mean, just constantly bouncing back and forth, like a semester, you lose out a little bit of an opportunity to develop a relationship for long
Sure.
term. You learn somebody for 3 months and then you move on. And the more you spend with a program, or a student athlete, the better relationship you have, and the easier it is to do your job, and they understand that you care. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I mean, if I didn't bounce around as much as I did, I might not have ever realized how much I enjoyed working baseball, and I might not be here. I might be somewhere completely different.
Sure. And during, I know you mentioned you enjoyed volleyball and learning baseball. Was there ever a time when, you thought after Penn State that you might pursue something in a different sport, even outside of the college arena?
I knew I wanted to work college. The thought process was always maybe professional,
Hmm.
but I enjoy the college component of this. I feel like we get a very young mind that we're still helping mature
Sure.
both within their sport, but within their personal life as
Hmm.
well. So I do enjoy being around that. I mean, I didn't necessarily think I was going to work track and field once I left Florida.
Hmm.
But at the time I needed a job and that was what was available. So
Yep.
just kind of staying open-minded, but I love this setting. I don't necessarily see myself making a transition into professional baseball. I
Hmm.
don't necessarily want to work. I know a lot of athletic trainers eventually move into like a clinic setting, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't
Yeah.
see myself doing that.
Hmm. And after your time at Penn State, you just mentioned you made the leap to head south to Florida, and covering baseball and softball down there. Um, what went into the decision to kind of move along? Obviously, you graduate, you need to, something changes.
Mhm.
Just that's how it happens. Did
Yeah.
you consider staying at Penn State? Did you want to go south? Did you want to, find a new experience on a new campus? What kind of went into your decision making process moving to Florida?
Yeah, so I was working for my supervisor at Penn State at the time, Scott Campbell. He was the one who originally showed. He's like, "Hey, I got somebody reach out to me. They're looking for an intern in baseball, softball." And he's the one that convinced me to go down that route. He said he was a great supervisor. He had worked with him at LSU before. This is John McElhaney, who's at Florida now.
Hmm.
I was still looking for a job. I think I was kind of hitting that panic mode that everybody hits where they're like, well, what's next? What am I going to
Sure.
do? There wasn't an opportunity, or there wasn't going to be an opportunity for me to stay at Penn State. So that was the next step. That was the first time I really left the Northeast too, which was kind of cool. Sometimes I think I wish I would have done that earlier, just to get out of my comfort zone and see different parts of the country. So that took me down there, and it was awesome. It was a great decision.
And after the time at Florida, obviously moved over to Vanderbilt, I believe in 2016.
Hmm.
Again, talk about that decision, getting into covering track and field and cross country, not necessarily jumping right into baseball or football like you talked, you might have wanted to. What went into that decision? How did the kind of opportunity at Vanderbilt come to fruition?
Yeah, so it was a similar situation. I left Florida. I was looking for a job, and I got really I don't want to say tunnel vision, but I got really specific with the jobs that I was looking for, and they were few and far between. Some of the ones that were available, I had not yet had quite enough experience doing. So I had
Hmm.
hit a point where now I was unemployed for really 3 months, and I needed another job.
Sure.
So I started expanding my search a little bit, I expanded my mindset a little bit and
Hmm.
applied for some other sports. I was interviewing for like gymnastics jobs, track and field jobs, a couple other baseball ones. But
Yeah.
when I came and interviewed here at Vanderbilt, I enjoyed it. The staff here is incredible. I could tell as soon as I walked in, I'm like, I can see myself working here. The city is awesome. I love living in Nashville
Yeah.
too. So it's kind of a perfect world.
And Vanderbilt obviously powerhouse in baseball. Like you said, Nashville's a booming city. Seems like the ideal spot for a young professional to break in.
Mhm.
Talk about working at such a prestigious university, powerhouse baseball program. I think anyone who knows anything about college baseball or professional as well. Just so many good players come out from there. Such a dominant program over the years. Are the resources for you and your staff much different than at Penn State or Florida? Is this something that factored into your decision in terms of moving over to a huge school with great programs like that?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly easier to do the job when you're not having to worry about cost for a
Sure.
lot of different things. I generally consider myself a pretty minimalistic athletic trainer. I don't spend money frivolously. But as far as resources go, I'm very fortunate to work at a school that supports baseball in a way that a lot of places don't support baseball at the college level, and even the conference has supported baseball over the last 10 years in a way that is very unique. I think one of the biggest resources we have here at Vanderbilt is that I'm actually a medical center employee. I don't think a lot of people realize that I'm hired through the university, the hospital system, and then we contract out into the athletic department. So from a day-to-day standpoint, I'm part of the team. I'm part of the athletic department. I don't feel any different than I maybe did at Penn State or Florida. I'm very much a Vanderbilt baseball team member and an athletic department member. But we get an access to the medical center, which is 2 blocks up the street from us, and that resource is unique in terms of we're in the Epic medical record, and just having access to different specialties, getting our guys in an incredibly timely manner. That's a unique resource to Vanderbilt that was different than when I was at Penn State, when I was different in Florida. Not that those places don't have access to these type of physicians and specialties here, but it's super unique being a hospital employee.
And you talked about those resources and just access. I
Mhm.
think unparalleled at Vanderbilt compared to other programs across the country, baseball wise. I believe in 2023, some big renovations went on over at the stadium. Did you guys have a say? And correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have some input in terms of the athletic training facilities there, and kind of how that would look, and such a glamorous facility, but talk a bit about that renovation and kind of what those resources lend to your staff.
Yeah, so the renovation is we announced the renovation in 23. It's going
Mhm.
to roll out in phases. So actually, we haven't most of the renovations been specific to basketball and football, and then we're
Okay.
supposed to break ground, I believe, at some point at the end of our baseball season here in some of the new baseball facilities. So we haven't quite started building into that. The athletic training room is not in the initial first phase,
Okay.
so we're not quite there yet. I know when the time comes, my input will they'll include my input, and I'm excited for what that may look like. But yeah,
Hmm.
we're not there yet, but
Gotcha.
it's on the horizon. It'll be cool.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to get in a bit about your day to day as a staff member, covering baseball at Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
I know right now things are ramping up. It's that time of year
Yep.
for you guys. Practice, I believe, is underway or getting underway here soon,
Mhm.
trending towards the start of the actual season in February. Are you working with players every day in the off season or leading up to the season starting? What do you guys have going on a day-to-day basis right now? What's kind of like every day look like for someone in your position?
Yeah. So our guys got back to campus, I think 2 weeks ago.
Mm,
Our first official training day is actually Friday. So for the last 2 weeks, we've had guys in the facilities. They're doing basically individual workouts. They're lifting, throwing bullpens, all that type of stuff. So they're there all day. I mean, the guys we can't get them out of the facility, which is
yeah.
great. I love that. So we've got some guys we're trying to get healthy for the year. I mean, we're in a pretty good spot, thankfully. But they're essentially in full go. It's not a structured team practice right now, but they're all working out, and I generally get in the morning around this time. Um, and then all afternoon they're coming through. It's pretty cool right now. We do get a lot of our former professional or our currently professional athletes, our former Vanderbilt players, come back and train in the off season. So the morning is filled with pro guys, and then the afternoon is filled with the college guys. So it's a unique time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously some huge names coming back to the
Mhm.
school, as everyone knows.
Mhm.
Um, Talk a bit about your staff, what that looks like resource wise, team members. I know you can't do it all yourself, so I'm sure you work with some awesome people down there.
Yeah. So right now our staff is filled. It's me. We have a term athletic trainer position, which is essentially a certified internship. I've got a phenomenal guy in that position, Jack, and he works incredibly hard too. So the two of us are the certified athletic trainers, and then we have a student athletic trainer most semesters. We do have one now, Caitlin, and she's again phenomenal. So our little sports medicine team is three. We'll bring in a chiropractor occasionally throughout the year. We'll bring in a massage therapist. We do have access to a PT when we feel like we need him. So it's a pretty well staffed team, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, and you guys are obviously preparing for a long season ahead, you and your staff, and obviously the players as well. A ton of travel in big time college baseball. On a typical week with getting on the road, what do you guys do as an athletic training staff to prep for a road trip? Like, provide some insight here for our listeners. It's not just like you're hopping on the plane, showing up at UCLA or wherever you're going,
Mhm.
and getting people ready for a game. A lot of admin, a lot of packing trunks, a lot of getting things set up. Talk us through kind of a week where you guys might play a Friday to Sunday, on the road.
Yeah, we depending on where we're going, sometimes we'll deadhead a bus. Sometimes we got to pack everything on the plane. So when we deadhead the bus, we usually pack it right after our Tuesday game, and then it goes out Wednesday morning to wherever we're headed. Like I said, I'm a pretty minimalistic athletic trainer, so I'm not one of these guys that packs this massive trunk for a 4-day weekend. I usually have a kit and a duffel bag and maybe throw some stuff in my suitcase. So packing isn't terrible. I think just trying to get an idea of where we're at rehab wise. We don't take the full team when we travel a lot. So trying to get an idea of like what resources we're going to need once we get there to complete the rehabs with the guys that we're training, and then making sure the guys that we're leaving behind, which are usually people that aren't available due to health reasons, how are we going to plan their rehabs when we're not necessarily there to observe? Um, and that's the benefit of working at a college where there's plenty of other athletic trainers around that are
Yeah.
usually willing to help pick up in that case. So I think organizationally, it's just who needs what, where they're going to be, and then are we going to have access to it? So sometimes the opportunity to use the other school's weight room. Sometimes we got to go find weight rooms. I'm usually doing a lot of treatments. We'll set up like a little treatment area in the hotel meeting room, and that's kind of
Hmm.
where I do most of my rehabs, or in hotel fitness centers. So I kind of enjoy that part. You get the opportunity to be a little creative and kind of
Yeah.
think on the fly, because sometimes you won't know what you have available until you get there.
Hmm. And you mentioned, what you enjoy going on the road,
Mhm.
getting things prepared. We've talked to a lot of our guests on this show about, the stresses and the grind of athletic training, but you all do it because you love it. It's a labor of
Mhm.
love, serving others. We talked about your day to day. Is there one singular aspect, Chris, of your job that you enjoy most? A lot of people have said it's getting an athlete back on the field, seeing them succeed. Some other athletic trainers in the college setting I've spoke with have said the relationships, seeing people move to the next level are hugely important to them. What do you kind of take away as some of your favorite aspects of the profession?
Yeah, I think all of that is definitely things that I enjoy. I do love the rehab process. That's initially what got me into it. It's what I enjoy the most. I love it. I love building throwing programs for guys that are, whether they're coming back from UCL or something a little bit more short term. I find that enjoyable, and just
Hmm.
working with the different resources we have, like going and sitting down with our pitching coach and that staff, and our strength and conditioning coach and that staff. I do enjoy that collaborative piece and making sure. And then when they throw their first live at bats, I mean, it's usually one of the most stressful things for me too. I'm in there. I'm hoping this goes well. I know the kid's hoping it goes well too. But seeing them hit that point is incredibly rewarding. But I think a little bit more recently too, I've really started to take a lot of fulfillment out of mentoring our student athletic trainers and our certified interns, and
Hmm.
kind of helping them become good baseball athletic trainers. It's almost like a second, like we talk, everyone has their why they do it, and it's almost like a
Sure.
second why. And it's been cool to see that transition. Not that I care very much about our student athletes, but have this second route of like fulfillment for mentoring a student, mentoring a young certified athletic trainer, and then following them through their career too. I keep in touch with most of the people I've worked with over the last 10 years, and seeing how that they're impacting their schools or their
Yep.
organizations when they go on. I really enjoy that piece of that.
Yeah, working with athletic trainers in baseball for, over a decade now, I see the athletic training trees that break off, and it's pretty cool to see that, this guy started with this club and now is the head at
Mm-hmm.
another, and it's cool to see how you guys all stay in touch. So definitely
Mm-hmm.
echo that sentiment there. Well, Chris, I'm wondering, the season's approaching, you got guys coming in, you're ready to go. For you and your staff, outside of working on the players, do you guys meet often to set goals for 2025, reflect on 2024? How do you handle that kind of growth process as a professional and a staff?
Yeah, I don't want to say that we're not growing in the season, but I think once we hit the season, we spend a lot of our time obviously making sure the guys are healthy, and how do we
Yep.
keep them healthy. So when we talk about a growth standpoint, we generally try to do that over the summer. The summer is continuing education.
Hmm.
Like last summer, we were looking at the SFMA. So Jack and I had completed that course. In the fall, even it's a little bit easier to kind of stay up to on some of the continuing ed stuff. There'll be stuff that comes up through the year, and I'm like, hey, let's take a look at this and let's try this. But I feel like once we hit season point, it's baseball season, and we get
Yep.
locked into that. The spring or the winter's another one. So we just had about 6 weeks where the guys were home for Thanksgiving, back and forth. Christmas activity was low,
Hmm.
so that's kind of where we try to do our growth, um, and implement new stuff. So.
Hmm. And on that note, again, talking about you as a professional, many of our listeners know how often you guys are on the road, how much travel there is. And granted, it's probably a little more glamorous than, Springfield College or, even Penn State for that matter, being at such a prestigious baseball school like Vanderbilt. You guys on the road so much. Wondering what you do personally to take care of yourself physically and mentally, when you're waking up in different cities, different hotels, just grinding through the season. How do you find time to make sure you're ready to go when you get to the ballpark every day?
Yeah. I use the road trips as a time to kind of explore. Obviously, the baseball, where it's a work trip, we're there for that first,
Yeah,
but I use it as an opportunity to explore most of the time areas that I wouldn't go otherwise. So
sure.
we get to see new cities. I love food. I love coffee. So like when we have a Friday night game, I usually spend my Friday morning trying to find the local coffee shop. Or if I know that the town has a unique food culture, then I'll try to hit that if it's a Saturday morning game, and then I'll try to do that for dinner. So I just I use the opportunity to see an area of the country that maybe if it wasn't for work, I'd never see before, and I find a lot of fulfillment in that.
Hmm. And we'll get into some of those kind of personal questions for you here. Well, Chris, to
Hmm.
wrap up today's show, we're gonna finish with a quick Q&A segment called Extra Bases. As many of our listeners know, I'm going to ask four quick questions and kind of let you share some insight, like you did just there, about you and what you like about athletic training. So we'll kick it off at first base here. Like we talked about, upcoming renovations in Vanderbilt, going to probably be a beautiful facility there, which you're going to have a lot of input in. When you guys go on the road, or maybe in your past experiences at Penn State or Florida or somewhere else, do you have a favorite athletic training room that you've worked in the college setting?
Do I have a favorite athletic training room? It's as far as like when we travel, we don't. Maybe it's a little bit different than professional. We don't
Yeah,
necessarily have access. Most ballparks don't have a visiting athletic training room, or it's a table and like a not a closet, but a small
yeah.
room. So I don't get to see too much of that. Sometimes we'll get in the weight rooms, and there's some very nice weight rooms out there. Like I think Ole Miss has a beautiful weight room in theirs.
Hmm.
But most of our training room is done in the hotels. So I guess when we get a nicer hotel, I'm trying to think where we when we go to to Baton Rouge, the hotel we stay at sets up a beautiful like athletic training room. There's 4 tables. It's bigger than my
Okay,
training room
cool.
in the baseball stadium. That's a fun one to do. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different aspect from professional baseball and college baseball, but still some awesome opportunities for you to see some cool stuff there. Moving on to second base, Chris, you guys have such a cool vantage point for the game in general. You're sitting in the dugout. You're one of very few people who get that experience outside of coaches, managers, players. Do you have a favorite college baseball stadium that you might sit back in the dugout and just think, wow, this is absolutely beautiful to watch a game from?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there, and it's been really cool to see over the last 10 years how much SEC baseball has grown and how much
Sure.
money a lot of these programs are dumping into their baseball stadiums. Let's see, at Mississippi State, I think everyone knows that ballpark is gorgeous. They've got a very good fan base there too. It's kind of cool to
Hmm.
see that fan base fill that out. Arkansas has another one it's gorgeous ballpark, great fan base. But I mean, and then when you're fortunate enough to make it to Omaha, that stadium, when that thing's rocking, that's about as cool as it gets. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a unique experience. So that I'll put that as number one, and hopefully we see it sometime soon too.
Absolutely. And moving on to third base, you mentioned you like to go on the road and find some good food, coffee, whatnot. Do you have a favorite campus or city to visit when you guys travel?
Yeah, I think from a food standpoint, obviously, Baton Rouge has a very unique food culture. So I do enjoy. We don't go there very often, and although they've just realigned the conference, so maybe we'll go there a little bit more frequently. That's a very good. I love the food there. It's unique. It's not like anything I grew up around. We just added Texas to the SEC too, so I'm excited to go to Austin. My family lives there, so it'll be interesting to go there and see the city from a work standpoint, and then maybe get them out to a game too.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to go to Austin too.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a great place there. Well, moving on to home plate, the last question for today, Chris.
Mhm.
A lot of PBATS members, big league athletic trainers, and other college guests we've had on have talked about some cool welcome to the profession or welcome to being a pro moment. Have you had a moment like that? Whether it's at Vanderbilt or another school, maybe where you're standing on the line or in the dugout before a game, and kind of like I made it moment kind of thing. Have you had any like welcome to the profession moments in your career?
Yeah, I think there's been a bunch. And I do try to, at some point throughout the year, I mean, recognize that how fortunate I am to work in a job that I do, because it's a lot of fun, and it's not normal. So there are plenty of
Yeah.
times where I'll look around and I'm like, wow, this is cool. I think the one that sticks out to me, interestingly enough, is when there was a point where I was at Florida, and this was probably where I really started to like see myself working baseball. I was at Florida. We came to Vanderbilt. So it was about 3-4 weeks into the season, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's kind of where I started to pay attention a little bit more of what was going on around the league, and just kind of see like how good the baseball was in college right now, right at that point. And we played a
Hmm.
series against Vanderbilt. It was at that point, that rivalry was very, very heated, Florida Vanderbilt. And just kind of watching the game, and now looking back, there was about 20 big leaguers between the two teams, and it
Yeah.
was really cool. You're watching the game and you're like, okay, this is a little different, and to like that was the recognition that like this is cool, this is what I want to do, and I'm fortunate to be here.
Yeah, that's a great story and had to be a great feeling. And obviously, like you said earlier, tracking like, people you've worked with and taking care of, moving out of the big leagues, got to be such an awesome feeling there. Well, Chris, we really appreciate you joining the show today, sharing your story and in your experiences athletic training, and wish you and your staff down in Vanderbilt nothing but the best of luck this season.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate you, and like I said, I'm honored that you included me on this, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about PBATS and athletic training, visit pbats.com. See you next time.